We are incredibly grateful to Torah Memory Palace for sponsoring this video series. Torah Memory Palace is an incredible new program that uses the Memory Palace technique, which has a long history of success. TMP creates virtual palaces designed for you to memorize your Daf Yomi learning 10 daf at a time. For more information, visit TorahMemory.com or email info@TorahMemory.com. We are here to present a Seder get, the process of divorce. Most people have been to a wedding and they've seen the process of marriage, the Seder Kiddushin. The Chas and Kala walk down the aisle, stand under the chuppah, shaver brachis, placement of the ring, and the whole procedure. However, fortunately, most people have not witnessed the Seder get, the procedure of divorce. The Beis Havad of Lakewood was kind enough to invite us in and show us what that procedure looks like. We're going to break this down into a few parts. The Chakira Shemis, investigating to get the names exactly right. The actual Seder HaGet, the procedure of setting up what's necessary to have the get written properly. The appointments of the Shliach, of the Sefer, Bittul Maidais, seeing how an actual get gets written, and then the giving of the get. We hope this presentation is valuable and informative to give you a better understanding of Meseches Gittin.
Hi, Shalom Aleichem. My name is Rabbi Fuchs. This is Rabbi Weg, and this is Rabbi Grossman. I'll explain to you step by step what's going on today and how the Seder HaGet works. For this moment right now, we're going to go through the names, and I'll explain to you exactly what we need. The get is written l'shma l'shma, which means that it's written specifically for you and specifically for your wife. In the get, we write all the names that are used fairly frequently. So, firstly, let's get you, what is your given name at birth?
Chaim Yaakov.
Chaim Yaakov.
Yeah.
Chaim Yaakov. And when you go to the Torah, you use the name Chaim Yaakov?
That's the name we give, yeah.
Okay, great. And what do most people call you? Like in shul or your friends?
Typically in shul, call me Yankel.
Yankel?
Yeah.
Okay, Yankel. And, okay, now let's go to work. What do they call you in work? First, do you have an English name? Do you have a legal English name?
So legally, in other words, as I sign the checks, it would be Howard.
Howard.
Right.
Now, does anyone that knows you call you Howard? Like, when would you be called Howard?
Only when I make a bank withdrawal, I guess, like I said, at the bench or something, go to the doctor's office, give my legal name. But typically, like my close friends and acquaintances, they refer to me, out of shul, they refer to me as Howie.
Howie?
Yeah.
Howie. And, okay. Now, Howard, does anyone that knows you personally ever call you Howard?
Again, that's my, on the street, my friends, my acquaintances, they refer to me as Howie.
So Howard is not used by anyone that
other,
knows
right,
who you are.
Right, exactly. Okay. Other than like in a legal terminology, like I said, bank setting, doctor's office, if I have to give that particular name, social security card, that type of thing would say Howard. But, in a personal sense, like, hey, Howie, what's up? That's they refer to me as Howie. That's what it is, Howie.
Okay, very good. Get that. And, okay, now let's go to your father's name.
Yeah.
What's your father's name at birth?
My father's name is Yitzhak Isaac.
Now, does he have a English name, a legal name?
So, like I mentioned to you earlier, that like in a legal setting, for whether it was a check that he would write or on a social security card, it was known as Isidore.
Isidore.
But again, in the world and his friends and personal settings, social events and what, he was known as Izzy or
Izzy. And so again, no one that really knew him called him Isidore. Only his legal name. Okay, Howie, just one final question.
Yeah.
Are you or your father-in-law a Kohen Levi or just Yisrael?
No, we're both Israelim.
Okay, good. And then just don't take this personal, there are no adoptions in the family, I assume, not you, not your wife?
No, as far as I know, no, there are no adoptions in the family. You're regular, no.
I think we're going to write Chaim Yaakov, Hamachuna Yankel. Okay, Yankel, there is, as we all know, Yankel, there is a question how to write it with a ayin or the nun. we already decided that we do it over here with a nun. 'Cause that's
Without the ayin.
without the ayin. Yud nun kuf lamed. Chaim Yaakov hamachuna Yankel. V'hamachuna Howie. Okay. And v'hamachuna Howie, because he doesn't use Howard, he only uses Howie. Okay. Then the reason why it's hamachuna and not the miskeri is because it's a English name. Yankel is a shame laz, and so is Howie. So both of them are going to be hamachuna. Now his father was Yitzchak Isaac of blessed memory. Okay, and we're going to, as we left out Howard, we're going to leave out Isidore also, and we'll just write Izzy. So over there it's the miskeri Izzy, because since in the given name there is a shem laz as well, there's Isaac, so hamachuna is a downgrade. Right? Once there is once the ikar shem, right, the given name has a shem laz in it, so it doesn't get downgraded. So we write for the nickname also the miskeri, not hamachuna. Now we're going to write Rachel Sprinza. She goes only by part of the name. So we're going to write Rachel Sprinza de Miskari Rachel, and Bas Ephraim Fischel, de Miskari Ephraim, and he's called in the office Fred. So there it would go from the Miskari to Hamachuna, the Miskari Ephraim, and it would be Hamachuna Fred. Okay, so that's the names. We're going to give you a paper that says all the names. Now let me just explain to you what the process is, and just to get your mind frame into it. The first and foremost is that the get has to be written with your own free will, okay, and without compulsion, without being forced, and unconditionally. Now, own free will means that even if you had the opportunity to write the script of your life, you might have had a different ending to it, but all the pieces of the puzzle fell, and the situation is out as it is today. No one's forcing you with a hefty sum if you don't, or actually physically, to give this get. That's what we mean by without compulsion. Now, unconditionally, we mean that even though there's probably a divorce agreement being written, and divorce agreement has to be kept to the letter of the law by all means, even if you feel, or even if your wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, feels that the agreement was not kept, right? And even if you have the suspicion that your wife never even had the havamina to keep the divorce agreement, it's still separate from the get. The get is unconditionally and unconditional to the agreement. That's going to be the first question. The next thing is, if you ever made a commitment, if you ever made a shvur or a neder that you're going to give a get to your wife or not give a get to your wife. So in essence, now that you want to give a get to your wife, there is a promise or a neder, a shvur, either forcing you to give the get to your wife or preventing you from giving a get to your wife, and therefore the get is not being given of your own free will, which we need to be done. So as a Bezdin, we have the power to absolve you of any such nedarim, right? The way it works is Chazal allowed us to use a Pesach with charata. In other words, it's going to come down to that we're going to ask you that if you ever if you made such a neder, or such a shvur, or such a commitment, and you would have, when you made them, realized that you would later regret having made such a commitment, you never would have made it in the first place. So that is a charata, that you regret having made such a commitment. Now, the next part is a bitum maidois. Bitum maidois is before a person comes into Bezdin, he may feel that he's being forced to do something against his will. So he'll go over to two of his friends before he comes in. He says, you, Reuben and Shimon, you my Adam, that everything I do in Bezdin is null and void because everything is done against my will. So that makes everything we do today not good. So we're going to ask you to be mevatel, to cancel any such statements. But then sometimes the husband comes in and he learned Gemara and he learned the Shulchan Aruch, and he knows that we're going to ask him to cancel any such statements. So he'll go and tell his friends, Reuben and Shimon, that not only am I canceling any statement I make, if they ask me to cancel the statements, I'm canceling that cancellation. I'm going to mevatel that bittul. Right? So we're going to ask you to mevatel any statement that could harm the validity of the get. There's a three-way machlekes in the Shulchan Aruch how that's done. There's a machlekes rishonim. So we have a paragraph here in English that satisfies all the requirements. Okay, so that's enough for the first part. If I could ask you, please, to stand up. So we're going to ask you, do you, Chaim Yaakov, Hamachona Yankel, V'Hamachona Howie, Ben Yitzchak Isaac, Demiskri Izzy, wish to give a get to your wife, Rachel Sprinza, Demiskaria Rachel, Bas Ephraim Fishel, Demiskri Ephraim, Hamachona Fred, of your own free will, without compulsion and unconditionally, as I explained to you before?
Yes.
Did you bind yourself, make a vow, take an oath, subject yourself to a ban, or make a promise by shaking hands, or make an agreement by symbol? Or did you obligate yourself in any other way, either to divorce or not to divorce?
I did not bind myself, nor make any vow, nor take any oath, nor subject myself to any ban, nor make any promise by shaking hands, nor make any agreement by symbol, nor make any remark, nor perform any act which would compel me to give or not to give a get to my wife. Rather, I am ready to give a get of my own free will and accord.
Okay, so we believe you, but not everyone remembers everything that they have done. So we're going to ask you that perhaps you have bound yourself, made a vow, taken an oath, made a promise by shaking hands, or made an agreement by symbol, or anything similar, which compels you to give or not to give a get to your wife, but you have forgotten. We, as a bezdin, could therefore release you from any such obligations.
If I have bound myself or made a vow, taken an oath, subjected myself to a ban, or made a promise by shaking hands, or made an agreement by symbol, or obligated myself in any other way to give or not to give a get to my wife, I hereby, in your presence, regret such action.
Okay, now we're going to help you with a Pesach for a Charota, as I explained to you.
Right.
If you have made such a commitment and had known then, when you made them, that you would later regret them, would you have made them?
I would not have made them. I ask you to release me.
Okay, mutalach, which means that you were released. Okay, now we're going to go to the next part, which was the bittul maidois, bittul of Mesiras Maidah, as I explained to you.
Okay.
How have you ever said anything with the intention of rendering the get or the agent null and void? Have you ever declared that you are not giving this get or appointing this agent of your own free will, or something to this effect? Or did you perform any act to render either the get or the agent null and void?
I have never declared that I am giving this get or appointing the agent under duress, nor uttered anything, nor did anything to render this get or the agent null and void.
Okay, so again, we believe you, but not always do you remember everything, so we're going to ask you. Perhaps you have once declared that you are giving this get or appointing this agent under duress, or you have uttered or done something to render this get or the agent null and void, and you have forgotten it, or you're under the erroneous impression that such acts do not render the get or the agent null and void. Will you therefore make void all such remarks and acts of yours in the presence of the witnesses? Eid b'mahar b'tshuva. The one on the left is B'dam Feivel ben Aaron Yaakov HaKohen, and the one on the right is Yehuda Ariel ben Chaim. You're going to address them and read the next paragraph, which is the bittul maidois.
You, my witnesses, I hereby nullify any maidois, declarations that would invalidate the get. I am also canceling any statement of duress I may have made to nullify this nullification itself. I solemnly declare before you witnesses that I have said nothing to render the get of no effect or even to impair its validity. I also declare invalid any witnesses that may hereafter testify that I have asserted that I am giving this get under duress or that I have said anything to render it null and void, or even to impair its validity. I hereby, of my own free will, order the get to be written and given to my wife, Rachel Sprinza de Miskarya Rachel Bas Ephraim Fischel.
How you're going to appoint the shliach in the presence of the witnesses. So you're going to address the witnesses to listen to to everything that you're going to tell the shliach.
You, Binyamin Feivel ben Aaron Yaakov Akoyan, and Yehuda Ariel ben Chaim are witnesses that I am appointing Moshe Pinchas ben Yaakov Nachman to deliver this get to my wife, Rachel Sprinza de Miskarya Rachel Bas Ephraim Fischel, de Miskri Ephraim Amuchuna Fred. I, Chaim Yaakov Amuchuna Yankel Amuchuna Howie ben Yitzchak Isaac de Miskri Izzy, appoint you, Moshe Pinchas ben Yaakov Nachman, to be my agent to deliver a get to my wife, Rachel Sprinza de Miskarya Rachel Bas Ephraim Fischel de Miskri Ephraim Amuchuna Fred, and give it to her hand wherever you find her. Your hand shall be considered like my hand, your actions like my actions, your mouth like my mouth, your speech like my speech, your agent like my agent, and your giving like my giving. And I grant you permission to appoint an agent in your stead, and that agent can appoint another agent, and so on, even to 100 agents, and even when there is no necessity for it, until the get reaches her hand, wherever she may be. And as soon as the get will reach her hand from your hand, or from the hand of your sub-agent, or from the hand of your sub-agent's agent, even unto 100 agents, and even when there is no necessity for it, she shall therewith be divorced from me, and shall be permissible to everyone. With a faithful heart I have decided to carry through this matter. B'leiv shalim amarti v'gamarti lasais davar zeh.
With a faithful heart, I have decided to carry through this matter. B'leiv shalim amarti v'gamarti lasais davar zeh.
You, Yaakov Elimelech Yitzchak ben Shlomo Eliyahu, the ink, paper, and all the materials that you're holding in your hand, did that belong to you?
Yes. And Torah says, because of Sefer Kirisis v'nasam biyodah, it's the job of the husband to write up the document of divorce and hand it to his wife. You have to be a trained scribe to do that. You could appoint someone on your behalf. You're going to appoint me to write the get. However, I have to write the get materials that belong to the husband, so the get should be yours. You don't have such materials, I grant them to you as a matana, as an absolute gift, and then I'll use your writing materials to write the get for you, so the get will belong to you. You, Chaim Yankov, known as Yankel, and known as Howie, son of Yitzchak Isaac, called Izzy. I'm presenting to you all the writing materials, the pen, ink, paper, and all the writing materials is an absolute matana. Lift it up, tuck it under your arm, showing ownership.
You witnesses, Binyamin Feivel ben Aharon Yaakov Akoyan, and Yehuda Ariel ben Chaim, and in front of the shliach, listen carefully to the orders I shall give the scribe. You scribe, Yaakov Elimelech Yitzchak ben Shlomo Eliyahu, take these papers, ink, inkwell, pens, and all the writing materials, and write a get with them specifically for me, Chaim Yaakov Hamachuna Yankel V'Hamachuna Howie ben Yitzchak Isaac de Miskri Izzy, to divorce with it my wife Rachel Sprinza de Miskaya Rachel Bas Ephraim Fischel de Miskri Ephraim Hamachuna Fred, and write one get or more, even as many as 100 gittin if necessary, all of them lishmi, specifically for my sake, v'lishma, and for my wife's sake, u'lashem gerushin, and for the purpose of divorce until one get is valid in the writing and signing according to your understanding, and to the understanding of the officiating rabbi, and to whom he shall show it. And it will come to my wife's hand that she will be divorced thereby according to the laws of Moses and Israel. I hereby authorize you to make any corrections in the document that may be deemed necessary, including writing upon an erasure.
I shall do so. Cain, Asa. Just hand me your writing materials. They remain yours. I'm just going to use your materials to write the get with it.
You, Binyamin Feivel ben Aaron Yaakov Akoyan, and Yehuda Ariel ben Chaim, and in front of the shliach, act as witnesses, and sign the get, which the scribe Yaakov Elimelech Yitzchak ben Shlomo Eliyahu shall write. You shall sign the get specifically for me, Chaim Yaakov Amachuna Yankel Amachuna Howie ben Yitzchak Isaac de Miskri Izzy, to divorce with it my wife Rachel Sprinza de Miskarya Rachel Bas Ephraim Fischel de Miskri Ephraim Hamachuna Fred, sign one get or more, even as many as 100 gittin if necessary, all of them l'shmi, specifically for me, v'l'shma, and for my wife, v'l'shem gerushin, and for the purpose of divorce, until one get is valid in the writing and signing according to your understanding, and to the understanding of the officiating rabbis, and to whom they will show it, and it will come to my wife's hand, and she will thereby be divorced with it according to the laws of Moses and Israel.
We shall do so.
I just want to explain what says in the get. It's a personal letter from the husband to his wife, which has the date, has the location. We explain exactly which city it is by indicating all the waterways that surround the place. For instance, in Lakewood, we put in, it's by the Metidikang River, by Lake Carousel Joe, and by Lake Shenandoah. So this is written 3 times in the get. Where the get is written, where the husband is while the get is being done, because sometimes the husband leaves, we don't write the place that he is, and where the woman is. So it's written each time, this whole length of words identifying which Lakewood we're speaking about. And then it's a letter from the husband to his wife, where he speaks to his wife saying, I want out of my own free will, not being forced, divorce you, my wife, Rachel Sprinze. You're presently here in Lakewood, you're on your own, you can marry any person you want, you're permitted to anyone. Because a husband cannot just mention married, he has to permit it for everything. And so we have to, it's written both ways. It's written Radei at Materis Lechal Adam, which means you're permitted to any man. And we also write Lemhachles Nazbut, you could go and get married. The husband permits everything because he cannot leave over anything that she's connected to him that she cannot do. Once the get is written and given over, he cannot have any attachment to her or any restrictions on her. Now, if you could see the get is crisscrosses with nuns and kofs going down and lamets going up. We have to figure out that in each get, there's a lamet going up from each line and nins or kofs going down. The reason for that is because if someone wants to add a line, as you see, there is space between each line, and a line could be added to it. The reason for the space is because the length of the get should be longer than the width of the get. So in order that should be, and you shouldn't be able to add a line, we have to have a lamed going up and then going down, which crisscrosses and blocks off the space of putting in another line. We call that mu'ura. It's mixed up, the lines are mixed up. That's one of the reasons why we make mu'ura. Others say that the reason we make mu'ura is because we shouldn't be able to cut each line. If not, it's not one document. If you could cut between the lines, it's not one document. It's each line is on its own. But like this, we crisscrosses, it's one document. As you see, the get has 12 lines. This was made a specific amount of lines that no one should be able to add a line to. And the Tosfos says, the first Tosfos in Masechtas Gittin, that we made 12 because get corresponds to 12. Tosfos says another reason that the empty space between one chumash and the other than the Devarim, is it's always 4 lines. There are 4 chamashim. The Devarim is just a repeat. So the four chamashim, and 4 lines. There's 3 spaces between the 4 chamashim, which each one is 4 lines. So that separates the Torah. We write the same amount to separate a husband from a wife. We stretch letters to fill up the get because it has to be 12 lines. And in the last line, we do not add more than the 3 words, Kedas Moshe Yisrael, because the Gemara says you don't learn anything from the last line, because a person could sneak in the last line. So only 3 words are written in the last line, Kedas Moshe Yisrael. Before the writing of the get, we make sirtit, which means lines, which see through line. The reason for that is because it's called Sefer Teruchim, And a Sefer Torah needs to have sirtit. What's interesting is that the lines are made the opposite of a Torah. Torah, the sirtit is pressed in. It's like a scratch into the klaf, but here it's made sticking out. The reason for that, but because there are some opinions that a scratch in a paper could be considered a written thing, because even HaGet, it could be considered like writing if you have the scratch. So we don't want to make any scratches in it, so we make it sticking up. And that's prepared prior to the writing. It's called tikkunim that we make for the get. And before I do that, I have to say I'm doing this specifically for the husband and for the wife. And before the writing, I again say that this is written and signed. I'm writing it specifically for the husband to divorce with his wife. As you see in this get, there's a big base. The big base comes out sometimes if, let's say, ink comes off the quill. Too much ink comes off the quill. We could make a large letter, or if you make a mistake, we could make a large letter which covers a few letters in order not to have to rewrite the get. It's a minhag already from Europe and all the years. It's brought down in Marsham, and there is a mekiddush that kach amedaber, that the minhag ha'olam, if you make a mistake, is you make large letters. You could also see that this Itzavian is written with 3 yuds. Really, it should be usually with 2 yuds, but 2 yuds would mean alushin rabim in Aramaic. So 3 yuds makes it to be alushin yachid. When the husband talks to the wife, he talks to her personally. It's not spoken to a few people. So we write this Itzavian and this Havian with 3 yuds. There's some who try that Vanash Lu should not be in one line. That's brought down by the Chassam Sofer in the end of Shulchan Aruch, because there used to be a name Anshel, like Anshel, and there was a husband who would claim that Va'anshel Yemacha, a person by the name of Anshel, could fight against the get, he could contradict the get. So we split it up usually, and they write it in two lines. That's brought down by the Chassam Sofer. This is just to teach the crowd. Hashem should help that no one should have to use a get. Everybody should live with shalom and b'shalva. Just as a way of learning, you learn a Masechtas Gittin. We wanted to show how a get looks, how it goes, how it works. And Hashem should help, no one should have to use it.
You, Moshe Pinchas ben Yaakov Nachman, a heilig get zel ishti, take this get to my wife, Rachel Sprinzer, the Miskaya Rachel Bas Ephraim Fischel, the Miskri Ephraim HaMachuna Fred, and give it her hand, wherever you find her, and your hand shall be like my hand, and your actions like my actions, and your mouth like my mouth, and your speech like my speech, and your agent like my agent, and your giving like my giving. I grant you permission to appoint a sub-agent in your stead, and you can appoint another agent instead of the first agent, and that agent can appoint another agent, and so on, even unto 100 agents. And even when there is no necessity for it, and even appoint an agent not in his presence, and send the get to him through the mail until this get reaches her hand, wherever she may be found. And as soon as the get will reach her hand from your hand, or from the hand of your sub-agent, or from the hand of your sub-agent's agent, even up to 100 agents, even when there is no necessity for it, she shall be therewith divorced from me, and she shall be free and permissible to everyone. With a faithful heart, I've decided to carry through this matter. B'leiv shalom emarti v'gamarti lasis davar zeh.
With a faithful heart, I have decided to carry through this matter. B'leiv shalom amarti v'gamarti lasis davar zeh.
I subject myself to a ban and bind myself by a biblical oath not to nullify either the get or the agent or the agency.
Being that I was acting as the shliach in this Seder HaGet for people to learn what a get looks like, I want Rabbi Fuchs to show and demonstrate what a shliach or a baal does when it gives over the get to the isha.
The get is folded up so it could fit into the woman's hands, as it says in the Torah, v'nosan biyada. We make sure that the woman removes her rings so that there is nothing helping her take the get. After she removes her rings, she holds her hands like that, and we explain to her that she should not move her hand, she should not take the get, and she should not close her hands around the get until we tell her to do so, because the get has to be given from him to her. She cannot be taking the get. After she opens her hands, the shliach puts the get on top of her hands like that, and he says,
Hareza gitech, this is your bill of divorce, v'skabla gitech zeh, and accept this your get, sheshalach bailech, which your husband sent to you, and you say the name. Uboy, and with this get, hi hayi megureshes mi bailech, you'll be divorced from your husband, you say the name. Me'achsha, from this very moment, harei at muteres l'chol adam, and you're permissible to everyone. The get zeh b'fanei nechtav u'b'fanei nechtam.
and Teichei Dibur, the get has to be put into the wife's hands. Afterwards, we tell the wife to get as much of the get in her hand as possible. Then we pick it up, and then if she has a pocket, we put it into the pocket. If not, we just tell her to put it underneath her sleeves. That should be totally covered. She takes a few steps, and she comes back and puts it on the table.